My guest today is Karen Howard, the CEO and Executive Director of the Organic and Natural Health Association, leading the organization for consumer health advocacy since 2014. Now, with a diverse background and vast experience, Ms. Howard embodies a simple philosophy: where there is intention in action, there is joy in work. And challenges, in her view, are opportunities waiting to be seized. And she is here today to talk about her new book, Upset is Optional. Say goodbye to unnecessary suffering. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome my guest today, Karen Howard, and her new book, Upset is Optional, to the show. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Oh, well, I can't wait to find out more about this book because I think we all live in a state of constant chronic anxiety in today's world. So, what led you to write a book about overcoming stress and anxiety?
I had the most wonderful mentor for many, many years who I took lots of courses with and was in a master's program. And he literally was a founder of the United States acupuncture institutions. So after he left Thai Sophia, and he started a mentorship program, which I also participated in. And we lost Bob Duggan way too early, and I was on the floor of one of our biggest trade shows when it happened, and I made a commitment then and there that I would write a book that took what I learned and his teachings to the public. It took me 3 years to sit down and write the book, 3 months to actually write it, and then another 3 years to get it out, sadly, but it's out.
Well, can you elaborate on the concept of upset is optional and how it applies to managing our anxiety?
I think we feel as though we don't have control of our emotions. And I also think, to set the stage, that we underestimate the power of what happens in our body. So we spend a lot of time in our heads, and we don't understand that your body is much smarter than your brain. So that the things that are running around in your heads are basically creating anxiety, stress, tension, and that changes your body chemistry and it changes your ability to sort of manage what's happening. So suffering is definitely all across the world and always will be. There are things we can do to support people who are suffering, but upset is completely optional and within your control.
You know, one of the biggest things I learned was, and in today's world, and this has been going on for centuries anyway, people react too quickly. And like you said, people allow their brain to run their body. And sometimes we need to listen to the body and not our brain. And sometimes we just, if somebody says something to us that could cause an instant reaction, and it could be a negative reaction, sometimes we need to take a few seconds to take a breath before we even speak. And so your book is so interesting. So when someone opens your book, how should they approach the strategies that you've outlined in it?
I think the most important thing to understand is reading the book is important. Practicing the book is what will change your life. This is not something that you can do overnight, and some practices will resonate more deeply with others than others. So I think understanding that, for years, I used sticky notes, messages on my computer screen that just said whatever the practice was for the week. And there were constant reminders. I know people that written on lipstick on their mirrors in the bathroom. I have a friend who is a horn honker, road rage. She had upset as optional right there on her horn. So it requires you. And we used to have to document what happened, how did it make you feel in your body, what did you do to shift your thinking, and when you did that, how did it impact the physical reaction in your body? We had to document that over and over and over. And that's how we practice doing this. So it's not, I get to read this and you'll take away gems for sure. And if you want to really focus in and practice what you're reading, it can totally change the way you respond.
Yeah, because, in a way, you're training yourself to learn a new skill, and it could be not to do something that is actually a bad habit. And so this is why this book is so important for millions of people around the country. And I really loved the word wall.
Mm.
So what is a word wall, and how can it help us to identify and even change our language patterns, which I thought was intriguing.
I use the word wall a lot. I live in Washington, D.C., so there's a lot of language that I would prefer not to use. And I substitute words, and sometimes they're nonsensical. So I can say that when I was doing a lot of interviews, and when the candidates were two men, I actually changed their names to Mary Todd Lincoln and Martha Washington. No one knew who to be mad at. You hear things differently. So I have another favorite word in my head, and it's not just what you speak out, but in my head, I use the word moron a lot. So I switch whenever I catch myself going, I'll like change it to anything like a moon, monsoon, anything that kind of comes to mind. I'm like, I'm not going to use the word because it reframes how I want to speak my language to people who are interested in hearing what I have to say. And it makes sure that I don't have the same kind of arising of anxiety or tightness in my chest by using the language that we think language is a result of how we feel, but in many ways, language is causing what we feel.
Exactly. And I can have that same problem that you just said. I mean, sometimes you're like, "Oh, what a moron." Now, a lot of times we will say that out loud when we're by ourselves, but if we're in the presence of others, we're thinking it, but we don't need to be saying it.
But thinking it has the same impact on your body.
That's true. You are so
So if you're
right. Now,
talking about not being anxious, not being, even if it's at a corporate dinner or you're with your in-laws and you have some anxiety around that and you're thinking those things, your body is still responding to that.
well, that's absolutely true. And that's the reason I need to dive even deeper into this brand new book of yours, Upset is Optional. Now, do you offer tips in your book on how to redirect our negative emotions like frustration and fear?
Yes, we would call that in the book reframing. So there's a chapter on reframing. And most of the stories in the book are very personal to me. So I think hopefully that helps people be able to reframe their conversations around their world. And you can take a situation or an incident, a family gathering that's gone awry for whatever reason, and you can begin to build a story that creates this framework of how you're going to interact with this person. So in my case, it was my mother, a long history, and trying to well, there is no try, but working to identify a way to be different with her and not have those judgments right, as you walk in the door. And it took a long time. At the end of her life, we were able to get to that place where I had totally reframed my relationship with her. All the stories, story versus phenomena. There's a lot of story in the world. Phenomena is what you're actually dealing with in front of you at that time. So to be able to reframe incidents in your life, things that are happening currently, problems at work, my boss is not fair, he's judgmental, this and that. Instead, this woman is working with 40 people under pressure. Economy's not great for our product, boo, 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 boo. And just being able to create a larger conversation in your head with your colleagues about what's transpiring so that you're not sitting in judgment and coming up with those issues, right? So it's a very powerful tool to practice in real life.
Does this help us to, instead of making a remark or making a judgment, let's say against our boss, should we take it as an opportunity to look at it in finding a positive solution and try to look through their eyes?
Yeah, I think that's a really great way of doing it. I think that's hard for people to do sometimes. They don't understand what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. And a genuine conversation about things like that. I mean, there are tools in there. There's a great construct of, are you making a demand or are you making a request? And this comes up at work all the time, where you're making stories. She walked by me, she didn't say anything, she must be mad at me. I just took a phenomenon of crossing paths and turned it into a whole story about somebody being mad at me. So there's a lot of assumptions we make in life, and there are great tools in the book to be able to, again, reframe how it is that you want to be in the workplace. My favorite is a request versus a demand. I've presented this in corporate environments 3 or 4 times, and the hands go up. Is this a request? No, that's a demand. Is this request? No, that's a demand. So it really is a toolbox to be able to navigate work, family, love, and life.
Well, well, I have a question because we live in a world where the smartphone claims to have connected us closer to everyone, but in reality, it's caused more distance. How would you handle, let's say, a text or an email that we can't gauge the tone of voice? So, how should we respond if we don't know what the tone is or we can't figure out what the tone is?
I think something in that is always ask a question into what you're talking about. Don't ever make a declaration, and be curious. So being curious can solve a lot of problems in the workplace. We jump. We know our work. We think we do it better than anyone. Somebody presents you with something and you want to take it inside, internalize it, and come back with an answer instead of staying as an observer and asking questions into that. And that makes for a better employee, a better boss, a better parent, no matter what the situation is.
Yeah, one of my favorite all-time streaming shows was Ted Lasso. And one of the greatest scenes, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's this dartboard scene in the pub, and the greatest scene was, he would have liked if people were more curious than judgmental. Because if you
It's
were
a really good
curious,
example.
yeah, so if you were curious, you would actually be asking the right questions. And
Correct.
sometimes I go on YouTube just to replay that scene and just watch it. So I'm like, yeah, we got to be more like Ted Lasso.
I agree.
Yeah, I just love that. Now, one of the things in your book that I really loved, and this is something that I practice every single day. But for all of my viewers and listeners out there, how important is it to set the tone of our day to reduce and hopefully, well, maybe get rid of some of that anxiety that we carry around?
Hmm. Designing your day, design your mood. This is probably the best way to start to practice, because you can coach yourself before your feet hit the floor to set the tone of your day. What kind of mood do you want to be in? Do you want to be peaceful? Do you want to be calm? Do you want to be reflective? And then remind yourself throughout the day that that's how you designed it. And that goes back to the sticky notes and, the message that you leave. Are you still calm, cool? Is this in mine? I don't vary. I know friends of mine that do vary, but I stick almost completely with, I want to remain calm. I want to be peaceful in my day. And I walk, I work out, I walk my dog, and then I will have to remind myself throughout the day, are you being peaceful? And I just take a body scan. Like, can I feel it in my body? Where is that tension? And what is it? Like, did you lose peaceful? And you can come back to it. Don't assume that you're going to stay in it all day long. If somebody could slam on the brakes behind you, honk the horn, you're not going to be peaceful in that moment. The question is, can you come back quickly? And what do you do to do that? How do you remind yourself? It's a really effective tool for getting through life.
It is, because it helps us to make better decisions. And I think one of the worst things, and everybody's guilty of it, and I always tell people, don't assume. It's like the old saying, 90% of the things we worry about never happen. But we spend so much time in the 90% that we don't spend enough time in the 10% that could really change our life.
And that's the creative side of who you are. That's the side where you're being empathetic to people. Those are the things that we don't train ourselves to be readily available. So the more you can get with the program, so to speak, the more energy you'll have to do that, and the less frustration you'll feel in the day. And the more your colleagues will enjoy speaking with you.
I love that. Now, in your book, you bring up something very interesting, and I don't think I've ever seen this in any other writing. You explain the idea of serving the 7 generations and its relevance to managing stress. So, what does serving the 7 generations actually mean?
The work that I do, and this is rooted in Native American literature lore. I was deeply engrossed in it at one point when the grandmothers of all these tribes were drumming at the grounds of the Washington Monument. And what we were taught was you are here on this planet in this one life to honor the 3 generations that got you to where you are and serve the 3 generations that I may never know that come after me. So when I do that work, I am motivated by purpose, intention, and honor. And as soon as I take a step outside of that and take a different kind of job, it doesn't work and I quit.
Yeah. I want to study more on that because I find it so interesting. And with generations, do we find ourselves living like those in the past?
I don't. I think that for me, that whole scenario of 7 generations gives me an obligation. I didn't get here without hardship, strife, wars, whatever has come for those people in my life 3 generations ago, right? But I know that I'm here because of them. And I think it resonates deeply for me because I never really knew my biological father. And I never knew if he was alive for a long time or dead. So then I've got these 3 generations to come, and I have, 2 kids, and I don't know what their future holds for them in terms of grandchildren or anything like that. But I do know that there are decades ahead of me that will be impacted by the work that I can or cannot do. So when I was the head of a water bottling company and I thought we were going to be doing development that was important to nutrition and wellness, that was great until I found out it was just about putting more bottles of water on the shelf. And then I was like, that's not working for me, folks. So see ya.
Well, okay. You work in Washington, D.C., a town that never sleeps. Policy after policy after policy. There's so much going on, probably so much going on now. But you work in the organic natural health industry. So, which is ever changing. And I know for you, I know for me, there are things that just really rub us the wrong way, because we look at it as it needs to be this way, no ifs, ands, or buts. So for you, what kind of examples do you use or what type of practices do you use from your book to help in this very demanding career that you have?
It's a perfect question. You're exactly right. And I told a reporter not too recently, actually very recently, that I've been a Republican and I've been a Democrat, and neither one of them has worked out really well for me and my issues. And that's true. So when you work in the industry I'm in, I worked with the naturopaths for 10 years, changed my life. I've been doing this for 11 years now. Animal supplements. I mean, I've been in this part of my world now longer than I've done anything else. And I know where I have issues with the healthcare system, and I'm very passionate about those things. There is one door that I see right now that's open, that's never been open before, that I think we have a shot at actually making legitimate changes in the healthcare system. First time ever. And that's how I keep my focus. That is my current generation. And that's how I want to serve the next 3. So I feel like in some ways, it's a gift and it's not mine to squander. And that is how I stay focused and pick my head up and get off the bed every
Well,
morning.
before our interview, I made the comment, when we were off camera, that I never talk about politics in my interviews. But I'm going to ask you a question, and you can answer it any way you want to, because my viewers and my listeners lean on this side of things. So many people are very excited that RFK is in the administration and everybody wants to see things change. Do you think they will?
I want that to be true. And I know there is opportunity there. And I know there are people inside now that are developing opportunities for that to happen. It's complicated because a lot of the issues that he speaks of are, I'm sorry, in the Department of Agriculture. And the rule book has been thrown out. So I'm going to take that as yet another open door. And we're going to continue to see what happens and how we can be instrumental in helping those changes come along. And I mean, we're not talking radical things. We're talking about SNAP beneficiaries being able to spend their money on vitamin D3. We're talking about some really basic kinds of things that are just logical and reasonable and good for health. And so in that regard, if you take all the drama and peel it off the onion, there are some great opportunities there. And it is incumbent upon all of us to stay focused and make sure that they go the right way.
Yeah, I know everyone's excited. I completely agree with you. It's going to take some time. I mean, the whole system needs to be disrupted. So many people have been set in their ways, have been going with the flow for decade after decade after decade. Nothing ever got done. Sometimes we think about the fact that here we are in 2025 and cancer should have already been cured. So there's so many things that we look at. And you bring up something that is so vital, and that is the focus on agriculture, because that's where health begins. And we have to focus. And you know this already, there are so many changes that need to go on in the area or the industry of agriculture. And that goes from what is crops that are grown to animals that are raised. And that also has a big bearing on the pharmaceutical company. So everything is connected. So I'm standing in faith like you are, to where hopefully we do see that there are these open doors, and that there are positive things that are going to come our way that will benefit everybody in this country and beyond. Because this is an industry that's just not within, the borders of the United States. This has implications outside of that. And there's other countries that don't allow things that we allow that we should never allow. So I know change is coming, so that's going to be a good thing. Now, back on your book. So how many people are under stress because they feel their life doesn't matter? Can your book help change their mindset?
Yes, because that's a story that someone has created for themselves. And you can create a new story that's bigger, and one that you can do more in, because we do this selves. I literally talk about a place in the book where I put myself in a closet, not literally. And I stayed in that closet for a long time. And Bob looked at me and he said, Karen, it's time to get a new story. And I was like, oof, I've been in this closet long enough. I got a new story, and I ended up leaving that marriage. Now, I'm not recommending that people do this because they want to get divorced, but I will say it's a really important concept for people to understand how they create their own world, and they can make it as small or as big as it needs to be to serve their needs and the needs of their family. So it is that powerful. It is, and that's why I think I took all the time to write the personal stories, because I want people to understand it's not it's a toolkit, but it's your toolkit for you to design for you, and what comes of it is all in your power.
I always tell people, you have to realize that if you feel like you're in a cage, you need to realize there's no lock on it.
Perfect.
And it's up to you to open that door and leave it.
Yes.
Because nobody put you there. You can blame people and say they put you there, but you're the one that chose to stay.
It is
And
absolutely.
hope, yeah, as a hope, and I believe that your book, Upset is Optional, is going to help people just to push that door open, walk out, and live a more peaceful, enjoyable, prosperous, and abundant life. Where can everybody find your book?
You can go to upsetisoptional.com and you'll learn more about my mentor and the book, and it's available on Amazon.
Fantastic. Well, I want to know, and I would love for you to tell all of my viewers and my listeners, because you are CEO and Executive Director of the Organic and Natural Health Association. What is the Organic and Natural Health Association, and what does it do?
We're a trade association in the dietary supplement space, and we're unique in that we represent raw ingredient suppliers and brands, distributors, but also retailers and consumer organizations. So we say we are here to ensure the integrity of the supply chain, create a healthy planet for healthy people.
Oh, I love that. And ladies and gentlemen, I know that you love hearing those things because we want to keep the natural health industry, well, honest, on the up and up. And if the word organic is used, we want to make sure that it's 100% organic and it's people like Karen Howard that are making those things happen. But for all of you, ladies and gentlemen, are you tired of feeling overwhelmed by the demands of everyday life? Do you long for a sense of calm amidst the chaos? Well, in Karen Howard's new book, Upset is Optional, invites you to embark on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. This transformative book will explore how your body holds the key to unlocking the inner peace and resilience. And Karen, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. I absolutely enjoyed it. Love to have you back in the future.
I would love that. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.